Lorraine Centennial back again to show you what can be done using the wax paper prints that I first demonstrated in part 1 and part 2 of the experimental wax paper series. This was called the ribbon wax paper part 1, and the other paper that I have chosen was done in part 2 using masks that I cut out from discontinued wallpaper pieces. There's also a piece of cellophane underneath the ribbon wax paper that you see right here that I printed on as well using plexi and the paint, which I will demonstrate in a future video. Here I have chosen to use a canvas, a 12 by 12 canvas. However, these papers can be used successfully in anything from large pieces of artwork done on heavy watercolor paper, eventually framed, matted and framed, or they can be done on cards, can be used on cards to do greeting cards, or journal covers can be placed and adhered on muslin and then backed with illustration board to make a nice heavy sturdy cover for a journal. It can also be used in a journal page in pieces. It doesn't have to be, I'm using actually all wax paper, but if you were doing a piece of your own, you could take out jelly printed papers, any kind of papers, maybe junk mail you've saved, anything of interest to yourself, put it on your table, put a whole variety of things to choose from. Not only your wax paper, I'm just using wax paper in this particular video to show you that something very beautiful can be made just using the wax paper, but I do prefer using a variety of papers myself when doing any project. I like the interest that it adds to the piece. Now here you'll be seeing that I am adhering the papers with adhesives, and I will tell you that the adhesives that I'm using here would be a fluid golden matte because it doesn't require a heavy adhesive because the paper is thin and it adheres very, very beautifully as a result. I do use a brayer, as you see, to fasten the papers well to the canvas. I use the brayer. I use a piece of wax paper on top to really, so that I feel that I can use additional heavy pressure. And I did wrap it around the sides. In the canvas, I like to wrap the sides, which eventually I do brush with some paint to distort and soften the image on the sides. I will also like to let you know that I did use during this demo a medium gel mat, depending on how difficult I found some of the papers to adhere. You'll see I'm using some heavier elements later on in the recording. And I did use heavier gel. I also used a heavy gel medium for even heavier. In the end, I put some heavy elements, some sticks that were covered with the wax paper. And I did feel that I needed the heavier gel mat for that. So as you see here, I did wrap the canvas. Now what you will hear, there's the wax, you can see the cellophane down there beneath this particular image. And you'll see when I put it on top how beautiful whatever's underneath it shows through. Now that paper is a little harder to adhere, so I would suggest using a heavier gel if you're going to adhere cellophane to anything that you're doing. And you will see that I'll do that a little later on. Here I am cutting corners. I pinched them together in the corner and I cut them. so that they give a nice, flat, sturdy adherence to the work. And I like to go over it several times with my brayer. Also, you'll notice I turn the piece around and around and around several times throughout the entire video. And I do that because I'm trying to gain perspective on some sort of a composition that is pleasing to me. I like to have a focal point that is a third of the way down at any given point during the work, so that I do turn it around. You can see, and I try, as I'm adding the papers, I'm trying to determine some sort of balance also as far as color might be concerned. Now here's the cellophane that I talked about, and again I'm moving it around because I wanted to see, well, where would I place this? Now there's no guarantee I'm going to like it in the end. However, you take a little bit of a guess, and with paper, the wonderful part about it is you can always add paper to the piece if in the end you say, well, gee, I don't really feel that it's balanced, or you can add another paper in another section of the canvas or the piece that you're working on. Also, I wanted to mention that I did show paint in the earlier part of the video because I had considered using paint in the piece, which I did not do. I just kept it simple and just added a lot of paper. However, when the piece was finished at the end of the video, I did stop for a while and I added paint to it, little bits of paint and additional paper, which I will talk to you about at the end of the video. I will show you the final finished piece when the video is over. Again, now this is the cellophane. It was a little more difficult to adhere, and I did stop, and there it is, adhered very well. I did stop the video and managed to do a better job on fastening the paper. Now I'm adding additional elements to the piece. It's corrugated cardboard. Part of the pieces that I'm adding will not only be the corrugated cardboard, but additional wax paper and a piece of cellophane. Now here I'm using a heavier adhesive. It's the medium matte gel. And I like to put it on both sides of whatever it is that I am trying to fasten. Because if you don't get one spot, you'll get another using the other, if you place it on the other piece that you're trying to adhere. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting a heavier gel, and it did fasten very well. It worked out very well. Now sometimes you can put a book on top of something with a piece of wax paper under it, although I didn't really have to do that at this time. It worked out very nicely. And you'll see when we turn it over here that I did paint that after the fact in the turquoise and the black, and I did add a little white on the edges, and I'll tell you why I did that in a few minutes. But I also want to point out here that this piece fell short. In my opinion, it fell short of, you'll see there's a whole space there up on each end that does not have the corrugated cardboard, which I compensated for after the piece was done. And you'll see that at the end of the video, how I filled that in, and it worked for me. I liked it very much. Okay, so now this is a piece of wax paper, again, being adhered to the corrugated cardboard. And again, I continue to look at the design. I see follow through color. There's black with the circles at either end of the piece, and you'll see that I'll continue to turn that piece around to see how comfortable I am with it. And there's that wax paper again, adhering it nicely. And I put a little bit extra in the corners that I saw lifting. So I hope that you will even try something along these lines using wax paper. You'll be very surprised. I made beautiful book cover using the wax paper, and again, you can layer on top of it. I put modeling paste on top of wax paper book cover that I made using a stencil, and that was quite beautiful, and then tinted on top of the modeling paste. Okay, here we are putting on another piece of cellophane, which shows through the underneath color. And layers are always something that you would look for, and probably I could have done even more layers on top of the wax paper. I could have stenciled on top, I could have stamped on top, but for all intents and purposes, I just wanted to use what I had handy. And I was actually very pleased with the way it worked out. And I hope you'll get enthusiastic about it. And if you want to treat this wax paper when you're done, you can put a layer of gloss medium, and I would mix some matte medium with it, half and half, over the entire piece when it's done, to add to the integrity of the piece and to prevent it from fading in the future. Here we go, pressuring down, pressing, always pressing and pressing. Never hurts to add a little more pressure to anything. And I would love to have your comments. I would love to know if you've tried the process. Here we go again with the wax paper and the brayer. And I would love to know what you're doing if you do decide to use the wax paper in any project. Make a card, you can make a card. Anything that requires paper will work well using these prints. And as I said, they're beautiful. And sometimes you can fold them up and cut designs into them so that when you open them up, you can see through them, and then you can add other papers or fabrics or anything else printed from printed pages from books underneath. And they really look quite beautiful. There you go. Now we're going to be turning it again after we add some elements. Now I can tell you why, maybe a little bit why I painted the white going along the strips of the corrugated paper, because I wanted to point to my focal point, which is a third of a way down. And I do turn, as I said, turn the canvas around because I'm trying to decide on where to place this circle at this particular time. And how I always look at it is no matter which way I turn this canvas, it should look right to me. And then I feel comfortable with where I've placed the circle. So you can see as I'm turning it, it just seems to look right, no matter which way you turn it. And there's that heavier gel under the circle as well, heavy gel matte medium. And always making sure that you have plenty adhesive. You don't want anything coming up on you in the future. Now, that piece that I put on top there, it was a stick. I bought sticks and I covered them with the wax paper. I put some adhesive in the wax paper, cut a small thin sliver, and then I rolled the dowel or the wood in there. Now you can get that in Home Depot or Lowe's. You can get different lengths actually. Sometimes when you're doing a bigger piece of artwork on a canvas, you can even use piping and really make quite an interesting abstract three-dimensional design. Now this piece that I added here also points to the focal point, which is the circle and the stick. did that for a reason. And the lines, if you look at the lines that are leading, there are lines from the paper that's underneath that do lead your eye to the focal point. Now I did add this piece, which eventually I did not like and I removed it, but it's interesting to look at this particular time. Now here's the finished work done on the 12 by 12 canvas using the wax paper. I did make additional changes or added additional elements to increase the overall design of the work. I added black paint around the outer edge of the canvas, as well as some additional papers and 3 dowels covered in wax paper instead of the one that I originally worked with when I did the demo. I hope you enjoyed the work. I hope you enjoyed the demo, and I do hope you'll subscribe to my channel. Leave any questions or comments below. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And I look forward to seeing you again. Have a wonderful day, and thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye.